Hi there, fellow A-pluses, and welcome to our first episode of the WrestleManiacs Podcast. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the WWE releases as well as the new SmackDown deal because I feel like those two go hand in hand. Wouldn't you agree, Josh?
Oh, definitely. I agree. I mean, it's definitely been quite a day really just a month from the merger from UFC and WWE for the TKO brand to, the SmackDown deal to even the new releases. Yeah. I mean, it's been quite a day. We've been going back and forth all day just about just the shocking developments. So, yeah, I definitely would say it's been very, very busy day.
Yeah, very newsworthy day. I swear, man. Like, as soon as I woke up, I checked on Twitter or X, and it was like 6 in the morning my time. And I was like, oh, SmackDown announces gets a new deal,
Crazy.
But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about that deal. This is from CNBC, right? And it's being reported that WWE SmackDown to return to NBC Universal's USA network in more than $1.4 billion deal. So the deal comes out to an average of $287 million per year, which is a total value of $1.4 billion for one show for SmackDown. Can you believe that?
No. I mean, look, we talked about just Vince selling the whole entire company for 9 point something billion, and then they turn around and get another 1.4 billion. It's crazy. I mean, I can remember USA paying, I forget, it was like millions of dollars way back when they came back from TNN, or I think it was TNN. Yeah, TNN back in the day, but billions, shocking. I mean, I cannot believe how much money. I mean, we're talking Disney money. That's like Disney money level type of stuff. So yeah, no, I was shocked.
Right? I was shocked too, especially because this is just for one show.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, granted, you have what is it, 25 years? Let me see, 99, 09, 19. Almost 25 years worth of data, or I say data, but library, I guess. But still, yeah, for one show, that's a lot. I mean, again, maybe I kind of wonder if it's because Fox paid so much. Maybe that's how they're able to leverage what we were on Fox on Channel 4. I mean, that's probably the way they get away with it, I would guess. But I mean, it was quite surprising.
well, the article does mention that SmackDown has been on Fox since October 2019 with a rights agreement for $205 million per year in a 5-year deal. So the new agreement is roughly a 40% increase. SmackDown last appeared on USA Network from 2016 to 2019.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is something that I don't want to say I keep saying surprised, but that maybe not. It's not the right word. I'm more interested to see what they're going to do. But I think there's even more to that deal, right? I think they get like certain specials a year. I think was it 4 specials a year on NBC, I believe.
Yes, it says here that WWE will also produce 4 primetime specials per year to air on NBC beginning in the 2024-2025 season.
It's got to be something like a Saturday night's main event. It's got to be something akin to that. I mean, again, is NBC going to really get behind it? Because I felt like at first when SmackDown was on Fox, they really were behind it. You see a lot of commercials, and I mean, to me, it seemed to wane. I kind of wonder if they weren't really doing as well on Fox as they expected, and I wonder if Fox maybe had a lot more. I would say shackles, maybe just more creative shackles, or let's say kind of standards and practices that maybe WWE wasn't allowed to really do stuff. Like I was honestly shocked that they were showing The Fiend on, Channel 4 because it was such a scary concept back then, right? So I kind of just wonder if NBC, if that's their way of trying to get them under their umbrella. But there's kind of an interesting development on top of just SmackDown. But again, we can talk about that here in a second about the future of Raw and NXT on the NBC Universal umbrella.
Yeah, it says here that they don't expect to reach a rights agreement for its flagship show Raw until next year. But like you said, an interesting development is that Raw and NXT might be leaving USA Network because of this deal.
I wonder though if that's really I wonder if it's an NBC type of way to leverage to say, okay, well, you can have rights to Raw and Raw and NXT, I should say, and then they can come back and say, okay, well, we're going to buy that as well, because really, you would think NBC Universal is going to want Raw, SmackDown, and NXT all under their umbrella because they can have a whole entire week, kind of like how AEW has TNT and TBS. I'm surprised, but granted, then again, they're paying. What was the number again? 1.4 billion, I believe that was the right number.
That was a total for the 5 years. It's 287 million per year.
Right. I kind of wonder if maybe they spent so much on SmackDown that they realized, oh shoot, we can't really buy Raw and NXT unless it's a package deal. But again, it's too late. I would be surprised if they went somewhere, but really, I mean, I've heard rumors of, it could be Hulu, it could be Disney, it could be Amazon, but I don't know. I mean, Raw is probably the longest, what is it, the longest reigning or the longest, it
Weekly
basically beats
episodic.
Gunsmoke. Yeah, episodic, that's the word I'm looking for, right. Right. It's longer than Gunsmoke. So, I mean, the fact that they chose SmackDown, I was kind of surprised because I really thought Raw would be the one that they wanted, because we always knew that Raw was the A show and SmackDown was technically the B show, but I guess the move to Fox has switched. But I don't know. It's. I mean, I've always been more had more favor to Raw, but then again, that's how it's been presented. So maybe SmackDown is kind of the new Raw, essentially. I don't know. It's a strange thing to them to lose 2 shows just to keep SmackDown. And again, what channel can them 2 shows really go on that's going to have the visibility of an
Well,
NBC?
SmackDown. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, SmackDown does get better ratings than Raw, so that could explain it too.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And plus, they have Roman Reigns. That's the one that's going to be the needle mover, as he says. And there's a reason for the reason he had that shirt, needle mover. So,
yeah,
that's probably the reason why. But again, I'm still so surprised because Raw has been the supposed flagship show for over 30-something years. So, again, things change. I mean, again, as we know, Vince is no longer technically in charge of the WWE. He now is a board member of TKO. But then again, there's a little bit of controversy there, too.
Yeah, definitely. But it's interesting because it's like if Raw leaves USA Network, what does USA Network have to anchor on Mondays? I mean, I don't watch USA Network outside from Raw.
No, I mean, I know that they always had a show right before. It was like Psych or something like that a couple of years ago, but that's even gone away. I can't even tell you what's before Raw or even after Raw anymore, besides CSI. Well, I take that back. It's like CSI reruns or something. No, I mean, they really USA Network. I mean, this would be the second time that they would lose Raw, from losing to TNN way back when. So I don't know. I mean, USA, as you said, they kind of go hand in hand, kind of like how WCW was part of the Turner Broadcast Superstation. It's the same way. I mean, Raw and USA have been together for, it's probably been since the inception of Raw, really.
Yeah. And that's usually when I turn on Raw and I set it up on my TV, it's like Chicago Fire, I think, or Chicago PD, one of the Chicago shows. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't pay attention.
It's that last few minutes, or like for us, it's always I always see I think it's CSI or NCIS, I think is what it is. And it's always that tail end of the show, and then it goes black and white or something. Then it's like, okay, now we do the now, then, forever thing. So,
yeah. But you know what? It's interesting that they announced it still this morning, and yet later on in the day, we got a bunch of releases.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising. 1.4 billion being paid, but then now we've got, what was it, 19? I think
19 releases. I counted 19 releases. Well, let's start with these releases.
Sure.
So start with probably the biggest one, Mustafa Ali, who got released. And you know something, Mustafa Ali a couple years ago requested his release and it was denied. And I don't watch NXT, but I was told that he's scheduled to compete for the North American title at NXT No Mercy. Right? Against Dominic.
I mean, literally, he was on the show Tuesday. I mean, they were talking about it. He was talking about he's going to get there. He's going to beat Dom, your typical promo, right? But yeah, to see him released, I was very surprised at that. Now, again, I don't know whether that's he was granted a release or more he asked for his release and they took it, kind of like how the Dyad waited out their contract. I'm not sure, but it definitely was a shocker because, I mean, most time WWE does not put somebody on a premium live event because they're no longer pay-per-view and, not follow through. I kind of more expected maybe they would have for example, let's say they're going to release him. I would have expected something like, if I can't beat you, Dirty Dom, then I have no career, or something like that. Then they would explain him leaving versus them just cutting him. So I was very, very shocked by that. And I mean, I guess maybe they had an idea because suddenly Dirty Dom is going to defend the North American title on Raw against Dragon Lee, who is one of the more popular superstars, or the more indie darling, I guess you'd say, on NXT. So I guess they had a plan in place already.
Yeah, that does make sense. So I wonder how this is gonna. So Dom not gonna defend his title. We actually kind of do have an update on Mustafa Ali So this is what is being reported. This is from Fightful Select. It says Mustafa Ali had asked for his WWE release back in 2021, but it was quickly rejected and he was taken off TV. We're told that as things stood, his WWE deal was up in the spring, summer of 2024. Those that we spoke to in NXT had no knowledge that he was going to be released and noted that he even worked through an injury to make his NXT run happen.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty bad. I mean, it's pretty bad when you're offered a title match. I mean, I hate to say it, it literally tells his whole entire story. His story has always been, I've never been given a shot. I've always been screwed over. And technically, that's exactly what happened. He had a title shot, never is going to have the title shot that he desired. So, I mean, again, I was quite floored by Mustafa Ali's release. Again, I don't know whether it was they just kind of decided to cut their losses or they figured out people like Dragon Lee more. Because, I mean, he was a worker. I mean, granted, he's still pretty young and he's still trying to find his character. But, I mean, when they went to, I think it was Saudi Arabia, they made a big deal about him going to Mecca. And, they really were starting to get behind him. So suddenly his push just diminished for some reason. I'm not sure why. But and I'll be honest with you, I thought it was odd that he was going to go against Dirty Dom because his character in NXT wasn't really a heel or babyface. He was kind of just a guy on a mission, right? Which, I mean, everything's a shade of gray nowadays, right? There's really no heels and babyfaces really anymore. But I don't know. I was taken aback to the fact that they let him go, especially having him advertised, and the fact that they have Crown Jewel coming up in November. So I was kind of surprised yeah. I mean, I was shocked because usually they use him because he's culturally relevant in that area.
You know something? I wonder if he was just like, you know what, I'm not going to win, so why bother type of thing.
Could be. I mean, it could be. I mean, I watched a interview with Sid Vicious, I think, a couple hours ago, and he was talking about the reason he quit the WWF way back when was because they wanted him to lose to Ultimate Warrior, not lose in just the traditional sense, but basically be squashed by him. And he was like, "Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm out of here." So I wonder, and you might be right, it may be because he wasn't going to win the title, and he probably got tired of the whole story of I never got my chance. So I don't know. Again, I was kind of floored by it, but again, as they say, the show goes on. So I'm sure they'll slot Dragon Lee in there. They'll have like a triple threat. Now, I can see them somewhat suggesting it from Dirty Dom's character because he likes to blur the lines and do all that of, even Mustafa Ali wouldn't face me. What makes you think you're going to beat me at No Mercy, whoever he faces? So, I mean, it could work in his favor, but again, I was surprised for sure.
Now, Mustafa Ali is interesting because the main roster, when they get released, they have 90-day non-compete clause, and NXT have 30 days. I don't know what contract Mustafa Ali had here, so I wonder what his non-compete clause is, 30 or 90.
I would think it would be 90 only because he's been on the main roster, but then again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the conversion rate because I think like Quincy Elliott's going to have 30 days because, he was on there twice. That's one of the other guys that got released, but I would think he would fall under the main roster because he could still show up on Main Event and all those other side shows that nobody ever sees on television. So I'm gonna guess 90 days.
Okay, I guess we will have to wait and see, because if it's 30 days, where it's September 21st, 30 days from September 21st, you have Bound for Glory in Chicago, Mustafa Ali's hometown.
True, so, I didn't think about that. You're right.
If he's got a 30-day non-compete clause, I would love to see him show up in Chicago for Impact in his hometown.
Maybe he could face Chris Sabin for the X Division title. I mean, because again, I like Chris Sabin, I do, but I kind of thought, gosh, he's a 10-time, person. I mean, really, this is the star-making moment. If they're going to make an impact, if Mustafa Ali beats Chris Sabin clean, then yeah, it would make sense. And I mean, especially in Chicago, I totally forgot about that. So you might be right. He might show up in Impact. That'd be actually a really cool moment for sure.
Assuming he has a 30-day non-compete clause.
Assuming, right.
Because we don't know. But yeah, so I definitely would love to see Mustafa Ali in Impact. I think he can really thrive in Impact.
Yep.
I think he would, make a great X Division champion and even world champion. Because WWE, we didn't see his potential in WWE, unfortunately, because I don't think WWE ever
champion in Impact, I believe, correct?
Huh?
I believe Rich Swann became a WWE Impact World Champion, I believe, after leaving
Yeah, he did.
WWE,
Rich
right?
Swann became world champion, and even Alan Angels, formerly Alan Five Angels of the Dark Order in AEW, he's shining right now in Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
So look what they did for him. Look what they did for Khan, for a lot of released WWE wrestlers. They turn them into stars, and so I that's just me personally. Where do you want Mustafa Ali?
I really think Impact will be perfect. I really think the X Division would be something he could really sink his teeth into. I think he would make him a main event player because most X Division champions, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, they move on to the world title. And I believe there is I can't remember what pay per view it is, but do they still have the X Division option C thing where they can either, I think, cash in for a world title shot and give up the X Division title, or is that no longer?
Yeah, they still have it. Actually, Josh Alexander, who is the longest reigning Impact World Champion, that's how he got his opportunity. He was X Division champion and used option C to cash in to face then Impact champion Christian Cage.
Got it. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, then again, Mustafa Ali could definitely do it. If Rich Swann can be an NXT champion, and I'm sure there's a history between them there. I mean, he has potential. He really does. I think just WWE did not know what to do with him. And again, really, besides Jinder Mahal, you really don't see very many Indian American, and I'm assuming he's Indian American, I say that, but you don't really see that sort of ethnicity really have very many characters. I mean, you had Kali, you had Jinder. Who else am I missing? Maybe Iron Sheik, I guess, but there's 3 in the entire history. So I really think that he will shine in NXT Impact.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, here's another one that got released today. Emma, who actually was in Impact before she rejoined WWE.
Right.
And now she's released again. So me personally, and because Dana Brooke also got released, this is just me, fantasy booking here.
Yeah.
But I would love for them to both go to Impact, reunite Emma and Dana, and become Knockouts Tag Team Champions. When Emma was previously in Impact, she was under Tennille Dashwood, her real name.
Right.
So she was Knockouts Tag Team Champion alongside Madison Rayne, known as the Influence. So I definitely could see her going back. No, but then again, Emma could potentially go to AEW too. But for me personally, I just want her to go to Impact.
I definitely think Impact is a lot more knockout heavy. I believe that TNA really still, TNA. Impact, I think, is very good with their knockout division. I think they always have a prominent role. AEW, they kind of get lost in the shuffle. I hate to say that. Yes, we have Saraya, however you say it, as AEW World Champion, but then you have the TBS Champion. It just gets really, I don't know. I can't tell you a good women's feud that, really happened in AEW, but Impact, you have, Gail Kim, you've got Awesome Kong, and granted, I'm going back in history, right? But you really have a lot more opportunity, I think, as a female in the wrestling business in Impact because they really make. Look, the main event of the show tonight, I believe, was the 10-woman knockout or 10. What is it? 10. How do they say it? 10 knockouts, ladies match or however.
10 knockouts tag team title.
Right.
Tag team match. My bad.
Right. Exactly. And I think that'd be perfect. I think Dana Brooke always had potential. The girl does a flip coming out with no hands. Again, that may not be anything, but still, she really has the physique. That's what I was surprised by. Thea Hale in NXT is basically a younger version of Dana Brooke, very well built. Same with Ivy Nile. So I think it'd be perfect. Again, they seem to really shine up a lot of people over there. Again, I'm surprised no one has stolen Josh Alexander because, again, TNA is, again, Impact, always good at making the people you wouldn't expect become stars. They become stars.
And another thing too, a perfect example, look at Trinity, formerly Naomi of the WWE. She's the current Knockouts champion.
But the thing is with Impact is you don't feel like the stars are coming just to, I dare say, make an impact, right? But they make an impact, but they're not just doing it for themselves. They really work with the younger guys like Christian Cage working with Josh Alexander and basically giving him the title. That's a big deal. That made that guy completely because Christian Cage is a star. Christian Cage has been a star since 98, 99. And I think TNA or Impact, I keep saying TNA. I want to call it TNA all the time, but Impact really, I think, is a breeding ground for the older generation to meet the younger generation, where AEW is kind of trying to be. I hate to say it, but I mean, just having Sting and Christian Cage in Wembley, if you notice, the crowd was chanting TNA, TNA, not AEW. I mean, to me, that says a lot right there.
They were chanting TNA on
Yes.
on
Yes. When
Impact's
Christian,
1000
yeah,
celebration.
yeah. I mean, and then that's the thing. I mean, I call it Impact and TNA, and I guess you can say either one, I guess. But I don't know. I really think that you're right. I think them becoming Knockouts Tag Team Champions would be a good thing for their career. I think they would work well together. And I mean, look, I saw the beautiful people return, and it made me harken back to like, oh, I want to see them back in the ring again. So I mean, yeah, I agree. I think that's a perfect place for them.
Yes. So okay, I just want to make the record here. I'm not going to suggest everybody go to Impact. I feel like I'm only going to suggest the ones that fit in Impact. There's some people that I feel like wouldn't fit.
Right.
So, but these next ones do. Okay, so for anybody watching, it's not
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, damn, wants everybody to go to Impact.
Right. Well, but the thing is, that you see Impact utilizes a lot of, I don't want to say unknowns, but I mean, I watched tonight, and it's been a minute since I watched Impact, but I was like, who is this person? Oh, okay. And they do a good job of really highlighting their stars and making you realize, even if you don't know them, that they're stars and they're important to the show. Where again, AEW, you've got the Brian Danielson, I guess I should say now, Claudio Castagnoli. You have all the mega stars, and I mean, unless you're Darby Allin or unless you're Orange Cassidy, you really rarely ever see anybody being able to compete. Where again in Impact, you're going to see a Christian Cage versus Josh Alexander, and in AEW, you're really not going to see that. Maybe a Jon Moxley and Rey Fenix, but that's a rare occasion that you see that.
So the reason how that happened was Kenny Omega went on this belt collector gimmick, and he was actually Impact World Champion. And I'm under the impression that it was originally supposed to be Kenny Omega versus Josh Alexander for that Impact World title, but that didn't happen. And instead, Kenny Omega wrestled Christian Cage, I think, on the first episode of Rampage.
Yes.
So he ended up dropping the title to Christian Cage, and then Christian Cage went to Impact, and then he fought Josh Alexander and dropped the belt to Josh. I was there for that. Yeah. I have that on video. Yeah, I have that on video.
That's cool. I mean, it's so funny with Christian Cage because he has always been the TNA Impact ambassador. I mean, even back in the day when he, I believe, was in Impact, I think they were, I forget what the occasion was, but he was in WWE, and they basically allowed him to show up. I think it's Slammiversary or something as part of history, even though he's working for WWE. So he's always been kind of the guy that's been able to kind of work with all three companies while employed somewhere else. So it's kind of funny that it ends up being Christian Cage of all people.
Yeah. All right. So Rick Boogs and Elias, and the only reason I feel like they would be perfect for Impact is because Joe Henry is also a musician, and he creates his own music videos. Like like for his opponent, he creates this video. So like Matt Cardona, he created a song called Edge's Bitch. For Moose, he created Dancing Moose. And I feel like the three of them together would just be such a great fit. Three magicians, just imagine the magic that they can create. Cool. I think that'd be so cool. I think they would make such a great stable.
I think it'd be cool. Yeah. I mean, again, and, really, I think Impact is a place to where I could see Elias or whatever he wants to go by could show up. Same with Rick Boogs. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, unless you are a Dolph Ziggler, I don't think you're going to make an impact in AEW. I just don't. I think in Impact, you're able to be yourself and make a bigger impact. I think that's really what it is. AEW tries to be TNA, but I don't think they've really had those sort of homegrown stars. Yes, you have an MJF. Yes, you have a Darby Allin. But beyond that, I mean, tell me who else over there is really a homemade star that you could say. I could name a bunch of people in Impact that either were at the end of their careers or at a crossroad in their careers. I mean, look at Bully Ray. I mean, we would have never seen Bully Ray in WWE. And I think there was even a thing he talked about Vince going back to be Bully Ray. And the idea would be he'd be a bully and then end up like changing his ways and be an ambassador for the Be a Star campaign. He said no, he wouldn't do it. So, I mean, Christian Cage, for a prime example, I mean, he was world champion for a cup of coffee and lost to Randy Orton and then goes to Impact, makes a huge impact, has a stable with AJ Styles and Tomko. I mean, so Impact has a history of making stars, even people that you wouldn't expect will become superstars. So no, I definitely think that would be a perfect place for them to do, because AEW, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. You really are. Unless you're a big name, it's not going to work. And even Dolph Ziggler, I think going over there I think he will make some impact in AEW, but I mean, it's not going to be what he thinks it's going to be. It's just not.
I could see Dolph Ziggler going to AEW because his brother's over there.
Right, but he's not going to be a world champion. He's not going to come in as a world champion. Maybe a tag team champion, maybe be a spoiler to FTR, but again, you don't really see his brother except maybe on Dark or Rampage. It's very rare you see Nick Nemeth.
Dark doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, that's right.
Elevation.
Right. I forgot about that. It's Elevation now. It's changed so much now, it's hard to keep up with. It's AEW Dynamite, and then there's Rampage, and then there's Collision,
and I watch it all.
I sometimes wish Collision would be Rampage, and Rampage would be on Saturday nights. I think. But again, that's just me. And not even in name, but just in the show's format, because Collision feels so much different, or did.
Yeah,
not did. As much anymore.
So, Top Dollar, I can see going to AEW just because Swerve Strickland's over there. And, they were on Hit Row together, which is surprising that Top Dollar was the only one that got of Hit Row that got released. I would have thought that the whole group would have gotten released, but no, just him.
I call him wasted dollar. I don't see anything in him. I mean, I hate to say that, but I think after that, failed tope, I think his number was pretty much up. I mean, because they turned him heel all of a sudden. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the whole Hit Row gimmick. Now, granted, they were in NXT, didn't see it at the time, but when they came to the main roster, it was like, okay, I guess they're rappers. I guess didn't really know what their character was. And Ashanti the Adonis, he was kind of some little guy in the distance. I mean, B-Fab was the one that really made the, I think she was the most, I'm trying to think what it is. You would pay attention to B-Fab over the other two. So I wasn't surprised. But yeah, I agree. I was surprised the group wasn't fired, but maybe it's because of the fact they see something we don't see. And the fact they probably don't want to release the entire stable over to AEW. I mean, there could be something about that too.
I mean, something, ever since what screwed Hit Row over was when they were rehired, they didn't have, where as he was known back then, Isaiah, Swerve, Scott. It was just the three of them. And I feel like Isaiah, Swerve, Scott, or Swerve Strickland, as he's now known, was what made them Hit Row. Right. And without him, the group was just there.
When he goes on to make the Mogul Embassy, right? The Mogul Embassy. I mean, that basically is not Hit Row, but I mean, he probably will show up. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll be like an enforcer. He'll cost them let him win somehow. But I mean, I wasn't really sold on him. I know that I think it was the same guy that was like, didn't he do Most Wanted Treasures or something? Like that's his name, AJ Francis or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, I hate to say it. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, of course, but my heart didn't break losing Top Dollar necessarily, because he'll show up somewhere. Not on Impact, but I think AEW makes total sense because, we've got Keith Lee over there and Swerve is feuding with whoever he's feuding with now. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So Roderick Moss, I feel like Roderick Moss will probably go wherever Emma goes, since they're engaged. They could kind of be like Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green, you know, that power couple of wrestling.
I would say so. I mean, that's probably going to happen. It'll probably be an Impact. I don't think AEW is going to want him. I mean, he's gone through so many different gimmick changes, and really, honestly, I think he had, the feud with, gosh, who was it? I don't even remember. That's terrible. I don't even remember who. He had one feud with some guy like one time, and you really started to get into it. Oh, it was Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
He was in a feud with Baron Corbin, but after that, did nothing. You never saw him again, except maybe one or two times. So
he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I was there for that. WrestleMania Smackdown.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. Beyond that, I mean, you've never heard anything from him. I mean, so I think it's a case of, I think there's going to be a power couple thing. I think it'd make most sense because you had Maria Kanellis and Mike Bennett, then you had Cody and Brandy, of course, in Impact. So it makes sense.
Yeah. He also feuded with Karrion Kross. Him and Emma had a match with Karrion Kross and
that's right, and Scarlett
Bordeaux.
But I can't say I remember it. I hate to say that, but I don't. I mean, really, I don't, because he really had potential. I just figured out that, after a while, I don't know. It's such a start and stop thing with WWE. It seems like they start with somebody, they get them popular, and then suddenly they disappear.
Yeah, and speaking of Roderick, we actually also have been updated about Roderick and Elias. So I forgot to mention that. So again, this is from Fightful Select. So Fightful Select reports that Elias has not been on TV in quite some time, but we're told that he has not been injured as of late. In fact, we learned that he had been pitching ideas up until about a month ago. Fightful had been asking about his contract status for some time. Roderick Moss had been a favorite of Paul Heyman when he was running the show, and was someone that Heyman felt that they could get to the main event level. Unfortunately, many others in the company didn't share that sentiment, and he struggled to get booked.
See, that's surprising. I mean, really, even that era of Heyman running Raw and Bischoff running SmackDown, it was over before it began. I was still so surprised by that because I thought that was going to be a perfect way to do it. I mean, literally, they had their feud in 04 when Bischoff was the Raw GM, but really, I mean, I thought that was a great move when they did that, and then suddenly it was like, oh no, we're going to change back over to whatever their setup was. So that's sad. I mean, because Elias definitely had a lot of potential, and I mean, he's got the look, and he had the crowd with him. WWE stands for Walk with Elias. I mean, you don't really have very many characters that changes it. I mean, you know what I mean? You don't really. I don't think I've ever seen that I can think of any superstar that would take the acronym WWE and apply it to himself.
So that was so Edge. Unique. We want Edge.
Oh, that's right. Okay, you're right. You're right about that. But very rare that you see another superstar do that, though. And the fact that they let him go. I mean, I hated the Ezekiel storyline. I mean, about as bad as Kevin Owens.
Storyline.
I didn't. I'm still waiting for Kevin on X or Twitter to be back. I told you he was Ezekiel. Oh. Because he would say something like that. But with Riddick Moss, I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, again, I feel worse for Elias than I do Moss. Let's put it that way, because I think Elias had a lot more upside potential versus Moss.
I feel like Moss had a lot of potential, but they just didn't tap into that potential, which is not a surprise because WWE rarely taps into anybody's potential.
True. That's very true. That's been a long time since you really had a homegrown star that really shot up the ranks in WWE. Because it's a start and stop. It's the 50-50 booking. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Or they'll go on a large losing streak and then all of a sudden become world champion. Doesn't make sense. Except for poor Kofi. I still feel so bad for Kofi. First night on Fox, 90 seconds, he's done.
So Fightful Select, and this is about Dolph Ziggler, also mentions that Dolph Ziggler was actually ready to leave WWE years ago, but got talked into staying with the company. Those that we spoke to this week said that originally his WWE deal was set to extend into the next summer. That's crazy how he was ready to walk and they talked him into staying.
I think because Ziggler, they always knew he was a good hand. I mean, that's the thing. Ziggler was a good hand. He was a mechanic. I mean, he would usually get somebody over that would come in new, he'd have a feud with, or he would just randomly show up. Like his NXT title run back at last year was so random because it was like, okay, he's going to NXT, great. Became champion, lost again, then disappeared. I think he's doing his comedy thing now. I think he's got, other interests outside of WWE, which again, they probably just wanted to keep him. Well, if you think about it, had they let him go, let's say a couple years ago, he'd have been one of the main stars on AEW. That's probably what they were afraid of. Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, now do I think he has major appeal? Maybe. I don't think as much as he did maybe a decade ago. But I definitely think that would have been one name they would not want to have lost to AEW at the time.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, you got to think where he came from. He was freaking Nikki from the Spirit Squad, and then turned into Dolph Ziggler, became world champion twice, and then NXT champion. I mean, I think I looked at his kind of record. He had an amazing career in WWE. So while it's sad to see him go, he's done everything. I can't really tell you anything that I would want to see. I can't think of a feud I'd want to see him in right now, really. Maybe him and Seth Rollins, but I don't know. He always had this air of like you always knew Ziggler was not going to win the big one. That's what it always felt like to me.
Yeah.
He would just be fodder. Kind of like how, I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel Nakamura is going to be the same way for Rollins now. Nakamura is just a monster to slay, and there's not going to be a chance he's going to win, which I hate that for him, but that's what it feels like with Ziggler.
See, I feel for Nakamura too. All right, so Aaliyah, she was also released. Fightful Select reports Aaliyah was a name that many in the WWE expected to be on the list. She had been signed with the company since 2015, and was drafted to SmackDown in 2021, but barely used. She did become a tag team champion, but had not wrestled on or off television once in over a year since losing the titles. We were told that she was rarely, if ever, brought to TV and was not factored in creatively. Ouch. Because
Wow.
she was in NXT for a really long time before she got drafted up. So
Yep.
I guess her
She had
biggest
potential.
yeah, she did. And I guess her biggest accomplishment on the main roster was becoming women's tag team champion. Unfortunately, she was the first victim of the curse that plagued
The
those
snake
tag
bit
titles.
championships. Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's so terrible. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, I don't know what it is. Every time you have NXT champion or NXT, the women's tag team champion, there's always somebody gets injured, always something happens. I mean, because I started to like her a little bit here and there. I mean, again, I thought she was still learning, but I thought she was passable enough to where she could be a character. If anything, it would be a character of her being better than somebody else or, using her beauty to her advantage, something like that. So I'm, gosh, it's really been a year since she's been on television. That is crazy how
Yeah,
fast that
right.
went.
Yeah.
I forgot she was in it. I forgot she was the tag team champion. I don't even remember. I hate to say it. I don't even remember who her partner was. Isn't that terrible?
Raquel Rodriguez.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was kind of the odd couple thing. The
Mm-hmm.
lady with no biceps. I love Raquel Rodriguez's character, but she kills me every time she does that pose. I'm like, what am I supposed to be looking at? I don't get it. So
I have to say, of everybody that got released, she was the least surprising one.
yeah, I mean Yeah, I mean I'm not totally. She may show up in Impact, but I don't think she's going to unless she surprises me, and I hope she does. I hope she goes somewhere and does better, but I don't see it. I don't see her making an impact right now, especially with Emma being on the now a free agent or soon to be a free agent. I don't see it.
Yeah, I see your point.
Or she may show up in Impact and be like, "Who's that? Oh, that was Aaliyah in WWE. Okay, that's who that girl was. Got it."
Hey, you never know. Like, she could probably maybe go to Impact and become a star.
Yeah, it might just piss her off enough to make her a star. And if she does, that's great. I mean, again, she has an upside. I mean, definitely, I think she's young. She's definitely just started her career. I mean, I think wasn't she on Tough Enough or something? I want to say she was like a part of Tough Enough, or I want to say I may be wrong. I have to research that, but I think she was part of Tough Enough originally when she got signed. So no surprise there, though. I mean, again, if she hadn't been on in a year and not factored in creatively, what are you going to do? It's going to happen. I mean, she probably knew it was coming anyways. I can't
Yeah.
imagine she was shocked.
Yeah. All right. Shelton Benjamin also got released today.
Poor
You
Shelton.
know, poor Shelton. Like, they had something with the Hurt Business, but again, like, they just never really went anywhere with the Hurt Business. They split them up before they
I
were
think
a
they were
dominant
afraid.
stable.
I think they were afraid to go full circle with him because I mean, the Judgment Day, what the Judgment Day is doing now, Hurt Business should have been.
Yeah,
That's really
exactly.
what I thought was going to happen because they were tag team champions, and then Bobby was the world champion. I thought, okay, bring another. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It was an African American faction. Nothing wrong with that. I love the idea. Now they never said it in name, but I love the idea. I thought it was a great idea. I thought Bobby was a great champion. I was happy for him. I mean, again, Bobby Lashley, there again, Impact is exactly the reason why Bobby is who he is today. Because when he was in WWE the first time, he was all right. He was an ECW champion, but had no character. When he went to Impact, apparently he tremendously improved. So coming back to WWE as the almighty Bobby Lashley, to me, it didn't make sense for them to release him. It's just like, just move him over to SmackDown, have him be like if Bobby becomes world champion, Shelton could be the IC title champion or the US champion over there, I guess. And then the Street Profits could be tag team champions. I mean, he still had a lot of upswing, and I was very surprised they let him go. Like
You know,
Carlito. Carlito was signed, and they still haven't debuted him, but they let Shelton go. I
yeah.
don't get it.
You know something? It seems it's so surprised that Shelton got the cut, but Cedric Alexander didn't get cut.
I would have thought the opposite. I thought
Yeah.
Cedric would have got let go and went to TNA and became world champion over there, and Shelton would have stayed, especially because Shelton's friends with Lesnar. I really was surprised, and I mean, I think I've always heard that Shelton, if I remember correctly, I think the criticism they always had about him was that he just wanted to stay status quo and never wanted to change, never wanted to improve. And I think maybe that's what they saw this time. Again, I'm very surprised they let him go, though. That was kind of a surprise.
Same. That really was a surprise, but I could definitely see him maybe going to Impact. I think he'll make a splash in Impact Wrestling.
I hope so. I mean, to me, I think if Charlie Haas came out of retirement, they re-debut as a tag team over there, it'd be great. I mean, they were great as tag team champions back then. So, yeah. I think he could go over there, and I think he would make a big impact. Because I could buy him as Impact World Champion. I mean, him versus Chris Sabin. I mean, can you imagine? Because he's a great worker. It's not that he's not a great worker. So I think maybe he just needs a little bit of
him versus Josh Alexander. Oh my God! Or Speedball Mike Bailey.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Man, okay. There's your main event right there for Bound for Glory. If nothing, I mean, I know it's already set in stone, but oh man, I didn't think about that.
Give me Shelton Benjamin versus Josh Alexander, or Shelton Benjamin versus Speedball Mike Bailey.
I'd love it. No, the Josh Alexander. I mean, he could be world champion, and I could buy it. Especially having an amateur background like Josh Alexander. I mean, they could make it to where, let's say Josh Alexander beats Alex Shelley for the world title. Shelton Benjamin comes out, debuts, they have a stare-off. It's off to the races they go.
Oh my God, that would be an incredible match. I mean, like Speedball Mike Bailey and Josh Alexander almost went 60 minutes on Impact. I could definitely see Shelton Benjamin and Josh Alexander like
Iron Man
doing
Shelton
something.
Benjamin.
Oh my God.
Man.
Yes.
See, this is
putting
the thing
that out there.
This is the bad thing about having the games. Now I want to go download Josh Alexander, have my own little match and just kind of have my own story now on the wrestling game now. So it's funny you say that. It's got me that excited now.
Yeah. Oh, well. Mace and Mansoor, Maximum Male Models, also got released.
I'm surprised Maxine stayed, but then once they moved her over to Alpha Academy, I kind of figured they were going to go by the wayside. I didn't think they were going to stay very long.
Honestly, like Mansoor and Mace had potential. I watched their skits on YouTube, the Maximum Male Models, and they were actually pretty funny.
I loved it. Oh, I loved the music. It was literally Zoolander in WWE. It was great, and they did a good job with it. Maxine was good.
But why male models?
Yeah, but why male models? Exactly. It's funny you say. It's so funny you say that because literally I was just watching Zoolander earlier today, and I just got to that part and I turned it off. So, I mean, they definitely could have made a comedy skit out of it. I mean, look, we had what was it, Fandango, Tyler Breeze, and they
Breezango.
Yeah, Breezango, right? I mean, and Dirty Dango's in the Impact. So, do I think they're going to show up anywhere? I would be surprised. I maybe Impact, but I can't say that their characters are going to make a huge impact. At least at first, they're going to have a slow burn. I think. I really do. I mean, because not Dabakato, Mache, or however they say it, he was a commentator on Raw at first. Yeah. And they got taken out by Lesnar because he was just a giant dude, and then comes back as that. I don't know. I mean, the Maximum Male Models have potential. I think when they made LA Knight, whatever his name was originally, when he came to the main Max Dupree, yeah.
Max Dupree.
I think that's what killed it because he overshone them both. So really, they were kind of dead in the water before they started.
I think they were dead in the water the minute they lost Maxine. Once they lost Maxine, that was it for them.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and I mean, we could have gotten a great match out of them. And who knows if the Alpha Academy versus the Maximum Male Models on paper wouldn't have sounded great. But, who would have expected Chad Gable to really come out of his shell being Shorty G a couple of years ago?
Yeah. That would have been, I feel like Maximum Male Models versus Alpha Academy would have been a great comedy match in a way.
Yes. Right. Well, especially with Otis in there and everything. Really, I really kind of expected Shelton Benjamin, for a prime example. Say they turn Otis, they could have done Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. You imagine that as a tag team.
Yeah.
That's the new team angle right there. Or could have been. And Otis has his purpose. I mean, definitely it's not that Otis is a bad wrestler at all, but I still think it's very... I just can imagine the matches of Gable and Benjamin, even if they fought each other for the IC title fight to face Gunther. I don't know. It's a very... Wrestling industry is a very strange place, who stays and who goes.
Yeah.
I mean, you lose Elias, but keep Omos.
Right? Omos? I was at WrestleMania 30... I would say 31. WrestleMania 39. Right. I saw Omos versus Lesnar. That was the opening match of night 2. Believe me.
I mean, he did a serviceable job. But They try and they try, but they're never going to find a giant like Big Show again or Andre. I don't think they can. I mean, they might, but Omos isn't it. Neither was Khali. Now, granted, Khali is a Hall of Famer, but I think Khali just, I hate to say it, I think he just kind of got in there because, he's popular in India and he really does a lot of business over there.
You know, speaking of Omos, his two best matches would be when he teamed up with AJ Styles to take on the New Day at WrestleMania for those tag titles, and then against Seth Rollins at Backlash. Seth Rollins gave almost his best match. So.
Oh yeah, because he had. I mean, it's not that Omos is bad. It really isn't. I think he can have potential. It's just he's so stiff. I mean, how do you go against the guy? I think Jake Roberts said it best with Andre. He said, you can have a good match with Andre, he said, but he'll be hitting you and you're trying to kill him. He don't even realize it. And it's kind of the same way with Omos. I think that, the superstars are going to try to give him a match, but what do? He's 7-something. What was he? 7'5", 7'4" tall. I mean, what are you going to do when he becomes champion? Who's going to beat him? Yeah. So I think it's one of those things that, it's not his fault. But at the end of the day, he's probably going to become a comedy character after a while. They all do. He'll be dancing in the ring or he'll do something. I mean, and him versus Lesnar, I thought was so strange. But then again, that was a weird. I didn't get it. I was like, that's a waste of $1 million right there, paying Lesnar to fight Omos. I didn't get it.
Yeah. I was not looking forward to that match. That was a match. That was a match I was least looking forward to at WrestleMania.
It's a different opening match. I thought that was so strange. But then again, I guess Lesnar wanted to go home. But I thought it would maybe be the second match.
I was surprised that it was the opening match, but you're probably right. Lesnar wanted to go home, and he probably wanted to beat that horrible LA traffic.
Oh, I can't imagine what y'all have to deal with out there. I thought Dallas was bad, but I can't imagine.
Especially at that time, the time the WrestleMania started, yeah, traffic is bad. So he was just like, done, and get out of here. Yeah. But speaking of dancing, Shanky was also released.
I don't care. I hate to say it. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. I mean, again, because he's got a family, but they ruined him when they started the dancing gimmick. I mean, granted, I always call him Lanky Shanky because he was so tall and so lanky that really I never felt like he had any muscle mass. With Jinder, I think Jinder could have got it over, but Shanky had to be. I don't think he had the killer instinct. Like, I didn't feel like Shanky was dominant enough. I don't think he was. I mean, think about Khali. He could just stand there, say nothing, just give a mean look, even when he debuted against Taker. And I'm like, okay, well, he's tall, he's big, he beat The Undertaker up. Great. But Shanky, I don't know. I never understood the dancing gimmick. I never understood why they would make him a comedy character. He's 7 freaking foot tall. Why would you do that to him? So, I mean, I'm not surprised because he disappeared. And, once you have a dancing gimmick, it usually is pretty much over. Unless you're the New Day or Rikishi or something. Usually it's pretty much over. I mean, well, I take that back. Fandango, of course, being the exception. But you know what I mean? Like, you really don't see those type of comedy characters last. R-Truth is pretty much the greatest comedy character of all time because that man has lasted for so long. And I was actually scared they were going to release him because I thought, you know what? I can see he's injured. Hasn't been on TV in a minute, but I'm glad they haven't.
R-Truth would ever get released because he's so great at.
Vince loves him too. That's the thing. Or Brock Lesnar loves him. I think Brock Lesnar wanted to do even more stuff with him when he had that comedy skit with the Royal Rumble. So, I mean, Shanky being released, I mean, he's young in his career. He could probably go over and do something in India with Khali, maybe, but I didn't see any potential in him. Had he had a meaner look to him, maybe, but you're not going to see Shanky and Jinder as tag team champions, I didn't think.
Yeah.
But where's Jinder? That's my question. Shanky being released makes me think, where the heck has Jinder been?
Isn't he like managing Veer in this year?
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's with the that again. Those two are just. I'm sorry. It's the same story. I mean, I don't think they're going to get over. I would be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if they got released along with Shanky because they're not over. They're just two big giant guys, but there's no story to them. And in this year, really, I hate to say it, I think they keep a minimum amount of, I'll just say it. They're keeping those individuals because when they go to India or Crown Jewel, they have somebody in that region that's popular. Otherwise, you don't see Indashir on NXT. Like when they had that, was it that Indian house show? They were going against, like, I think it was Seth Rollins and John Cena. I thought, what a weird combination. Why? Because you don't have them as stars on NXT at all. Like they were there for a couple of weeks, and that's with NXT now. It's weird. You have people that are highlighted, then disappear. It's so strange.
That does sound strange.
Like Noam Dar was gone for so long, didn't know who he was. Then suddenly he shows up with 3 other people being called, I think it was like Metaphor, Metafour. Suddenly they're now on TV every week. But before, I was like, surely I didn't miss NXT that much to not know who these people were. It's almost like a weird cycle. It doesn't make any sense. That's what I don't like about NXT, because suddenly Von Wagner's a big deal, but before, he'd do nothing. Same with Indashir. They were very popular around WrestleMania time, disappeared, don't know where they are now.
Speaking of NXT, Daba Kato, who was Commander Z's, he got released too. I mean, I feel like he didn't do anything much of his significance. I mean, he was Apollo Crews' bodyguard. Right. He went down to NXT. I mean, he was part of Raw Underground, but he didn't do much in his time, unfortunately. I don't know. What did he do in NXT? I don't watch NXT, so.
Nothing. I mean, he may have attacked somebody maybe once. I'm trying to think who he feuded with in there. He had a mini feud with somebody, but it just got dropped. That's the thing. I mean, think about it. You have Omos, you have Shanky, you have Commander Aziz, all 7-foot guys, and none of them have done anything of significance. Well, Omos being, of course, the exception to a degree, but still, there's nothing to do with him. I mean, he did nothing. I mean, again, his most prominent time, and he'll be well known for being Commander Aziz, a giant bodyguard for Apollo Crews when he thought he was going to be African at that point, which still is such a stupid thing. I never understood that. Or Nigerian, I should say Nigerian. But I'm not surprised. He's disappeared, and I don't see him anymore.
I think Daba Kato would be a great fit for Impact. Impact knows how to build a monster. I mean, look what they did with Khan, formerly Connor of the Ascension. Look what they did with W. Morrissey, who now goes by Big Bill in AEW. Look what they did to Joe Dorian. They know how to build monsters, and I think if Daba Kato goes to Impact, I think that they will build him up and make him like a legit monster.
I think I'd be fine with that. I mean, again, I don't think he doesn't not have potential. I just think WWE wasted him, and I never understood that. I never understood why. I'm like, he's 7 foot tall. He's a bodyguard. I mean, I kind of looked at it like, okay, so AJ Styles has a 7-foot bodyguard. Now Apollo Crews has a 7-foot bodyguard. What do you do after that? I mean, you kind of were snake bit from the get-go at that point. I mean, the only exception of that story is Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax, but I still can't understand how the heck they made Nia Jax feel for her when she was bullied by little Alexa Bliss. But, I mean, where else do you go at that point?
Yeah, and seeing that Impact, like I said, they'll build him. They'll make him, he'll probably face a string of jobbers at the beginning.
Right.
But you'll get to see how badass he is, and then he'll move on to a feud. That's what they do with a lot of these monsters that they bring in.
That's the right formula. I mean, that was the formula way back 20-something years ago, where you would not see like we talked about in the 1990 Royal Rumble thing. You wouldn't see the stars face each other. It would always be versus a local talent, and you'd be like, dang, they're really good. Oh, these two badasses are really going to fight each other to pay-per-view. I got to watch that now.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope he does, because, again, I think he had potential. I mean, if you realize Omos and Daba Kato were both part of Raw Underground. Omos was literally the doorman, which still was such a strange thing. And I was surprised when Shane McMahon was doing his thing. He didn't have Omos be his kind of manager and or bodyguard, just because it seemed like something heel Shane would do.
Yeah.
But thank God we did not get Shane McMahon versus Omos at WrestleMania, because...
Oh, God. Oh, no. What?
I know. I shouldn't even say it, just even bring it out into the ether, right? But, I mean, again, I don't know. Well, Shane's out anyways with his little injury. He couldn't even, do a shuffle without getting hurt, unfortunately. Poor guy.
Oh, I was there to see that. I think I have that on tape.
It's sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't believe he had that kind of injury, especially as young as he is. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not heartbroken over him being gone, because, again, maybe he'll go find somewhere else like Connor, as you said, at the Ascension.
Yeah.
But did you hear that, speaking of just monsters, apparently the Authors of Pain are supposed to be coming back too with Paul Ellering.
I heard about that.
But I mean, to me, like, okay, if they're gonna do it, this is the time where the Creed brothers should do something on NXT. They show up and beat the heck out of them. I hope that happens. I hope it really does. But like,
Yeah.
it's weird. They release these people and they have people in the wings that they're just gonna trade off with. I didn't understand that either.
Yeah, same. All right, so from NXT, we got Quincy Elliott, Bryson Montana, Ulicia Leon, Daniel MacArthur, Kevin Mentora Cortez, and Alexis Gray, which I'm not familiar with any of these names except for maybe Quincy Elliott. But from these other ones, I think they may have been from Performance Center because
I think so because I mean, Quincy Elliott, I remember as the guy that basically I call him the equation wrestler. Basically, if you take part Gold Dust, part Viscera, and then part who was it that I just said a minute ago? Oh gosh, Velveteen Dream.
Velveteen Dream.
That's literally who he was. There was no originality to the character. Now I know that probably evidently NXT before they went live because the crowd would chant Quincy, Quincy. So there probably was more stuff we didn't see off camera. But the other individuals, I mean, don't know them. They never showed up on NXT as far as I know. Maybe they were PC people. Ulicia Leon, she sounds like she's probably, and again, I don't know, but they're probably more popular independent wrestlers, maybe from Mexico or from wherever else, but they were never given a chance to be on NXT unless they were on Level Up, which admittedly I don't watch Level Up because I don't have time. So they could be on there, but I don't remember hearing their names at all.
I mean, and it sucks that they were released before they were even given a chance to perform on NXT.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
just in general, like all these releases suck, especially because like we talked about earlier, they got a $1.4 billion deal for SmackDown, and like you said, you couldn't keep 19 people.
Yeah. It's like Disney firing somebody. It's like, why even? What's the point? You have money. It's not like they're printing money over there. They're literally printing money. I
Yeah,
mean, WWE is not going to be, I don't think, ever again. I don't think they'll ever have the lowest of lows like they had in 1995 when they were having to take, catering out and stuff like that because now it's done. I mean, they are literally now Vince McMahon's vision of WWE becoming like Disney, becoming a household name to where it's too big to fail. That's literally what it is now because WWE has problems. Guess what? They're going to bring over UFC people. UFC has problems. Guess what? They're going to bring over WWE people. They always have the Stone Colds to pull out of their hats, Hulk Hogan's. I mean, they're too big to fail, and the problem is that you can't keep 20 people or 19 people. I mean, and that's not that we haven't even talked about the unknown individuals, the hardworking people at the WWE offices, like from the marketing. I mean, they were all told on Friday, stay home so that HR can fire you while you're home and not at the office. I mean, that's
right.
terrible.
Yeah, that is terrible. Seriously, and like, what's 19 people like? Like you said, it's not like they're losing money.
So what if there's redundancy? Somebody, especially, and the bad thing is, especially the way the economy is now in a recession, that's the worst part about it, is that they've made a whole bunch of money and still they fire people during the middle of a recession at this point. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it because it's not like they didn't have the money to keep even the people with the offices. So what that Jan from marketing in WWE does the same job as Jim from marketing in UFC. Who cares? It's a different organization. It's a different way to promote. UFC for me is hard to watch, I'll admit, because to me, WWE is so entertainment based that UFC, I hate to say it, and I mean, I'm probably going to get heat for this, I guess, but it's hard for me to watch because it's just like, okay, they fight, that's cool, but I don't see a character. And I'm so used to WWE because that's what I grew up with, right? So UFC is kind of like, all right. I mean, again, I have respect for those guys. Don't get me wrong; they do great with what they do. But the crossover is hard because when you're going from entertainment based to real fighting, it's kind of like, oh, somebody do a headlock, somebody do something because I don't know. It's a weird way, but it's sad because I mean I'm probably sure there's probably at least more than 100 people that's probably lost their job over at the corporate office,
Yeah,
and we'll never know
yeah,
their names and how much they contribute.
exactly. And another thing too, I thought WWE was done releasing people. I thought they were waiting for contracts to expire. I mean, take the Dyad for example. They were formerly the Grizzly Young Veterans.
Mm-hmm.
They asked for their releases. They asked, and they weren't granted their releases. I think their contract is set to expire in
Yes,
October, or it
end of
already.
September, right? And they let them
And
go, right?
yeah, and now they're done. They're done. So I don't understand why they had no problem releasing 19 people, but didn't want to grant the release to the dyad when they asked for it, or to Mustafa Ali all those years ago when he asked for it. You know, like you might as well just wait for these contract expires. And that's the one thing I do like about AEW is that they wait for the contract to expire.
Right.
You know, they should tell these wrestlers, like, hey, you know what? Your contract's not going to be renewed. We're letting you know at least 6 months in advance so you could start making plans.
Right.
To
like
wrestle
Sonny
elsewhere.
Kiss or whatever. Right. Sonny Kiss in AEW, prime example.
Yeah.
I think that's the right way. They, whatever. Sonny Kiss was definitely a character, and you saw him on the first part of AEW, but then after he disappeared, but then they let him know ahead of time, hey, you're not going to be renewed. And like you said, he's got independent bookings already. He already talked about, I'm not going to have anything bad to say about AEW, because they let him know when he was going to be released and gave him time to get ready for that. And WWE has enough time and they have enough people to pay to be able to say, hey, such and such, Shelton's Benjamin's contract is coming up. Look, you're not going to be able to show up on Impact, Bound for Glory, but at least you know in 3 months, you're going to be fired, technically. You're going to have 3 months to sit at home and get paid. Iron Sheik being the prime example. WCW hired the Iron Sheik and never brought him to TV. That man made $100,000 to stay at home for 2 or 3 years. And they were like, wait, why are we paying him? Let's let him go. I mean, you know, to me, it's the same thing. And just like the Dyad, I didn't understand that because the Dyad, technically, they got released, or they asked for their release, I should say, became part of Joe Gacy's Schism group, and then suddenly lost to the Creed brothers, and they're gone. There was no storyline to fire them. There was no storyline to say, hey, you're done. And they just let them go. So it was really weird. It's almost like they gave them an out to say, okay, we're going to get you even more prominence because you're asking for your release, and then we're just going to suddenly let you go. I mean, not that I'm saying they should punish them by any stretch, right? But it was a weird way to do it. Like Mustafa Ali. If you know he wants to leave, why in the crap would you make him fight for the NXT North American title, not write a storyline of him leaving? Like when Ziggler and Miz fought for the Intercontinental title a couple of years ago, I say a couple, probably longer than that now. I really thought if Ziggler lost, he'd be fired, he'd be let go, and it'd been the perfect way to write him off television, and he'd be gone. So it was a really strange way, and I think AEW has had more of an effect on them than they want to say, because like Moxley, when he was Dean Ambrose and they had that last Shield match, they thought he was going to go home. They didn't realize he was going to show up at AEW until he did. So I think AEW has got them a little, not, I dare say scared because that's not the right way, but they definitely are keeping their talent and not letting him go. But now them letting Ziggler and stuff go, they don't care. They don't care about AEW anymore, I don't think, as a threat.
Yeah, and seeing like the worst part of getting released is that, you know, if you're main roster, you can't work anywhere for 90 days. If you're NXT, you got 30 days.
Yep. I think they still get paid though. I still think they get paid for that 90-day period. I believe they're saying.
I think they do, but still, you're just at home, sitting down for 90 days.
Out of mind.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Something getting released is not the worst thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Matt Cardona, for instance.
Yeah,
he went from being Zack Ryder, who, you know, he won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 32. Then got screwed over by The Miz the next night on Raw. Yep. You know, didn't really do much. He was basically a jobber, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And look at him now on the Indies. He's thriving.
McIntyre. Look at McIntyre. Yeah. McIntyre was the chosen one, won the Intercontinental title, wasn't ready for that role, was so crazy that he was in that role, left, stayed gone for a couple of years. Cody Rhodes, of course, the same way. Granted, Cody's a little bit different because of AEW and all, but yeah, getting fired is definitely not a bad thing. I mean, you can always come back and make a huge difference.
Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley.
Lashley being probably the best example.
Yeah. Christian Cage. Look at Christian Cage. We talked about Christian Cage earlier.
Well, yeah, Bubba Ray Dudley and them just retiring, all of a sudden him having a whole career resurgence. I mean, look at Sting. They let Sting go, and then Sting now is in AEW wrestling every other week. Now, granted, he's, you know, doing, I think, too much at his age, I think. But still, the fact that he's retired in WWE, but then went and wrestled again, I mean, like, my gosh, you can imagine having Sting on Raw or SmackDown, NXT, even as a, I don't know. I just feel like Sting didn't get a chance in WWE like he should have.
Yeah,
and that's what was so heartbreaking, because to me, like, he didn't have to do anything. He could just show up and literally walk through a match and be done, or even be a general manager. I mean, whatever. So yeah, no, being WWE, I think the idea of you have to be in WWE to be a star, I don't think is true anymore.
No, WWE isn't the end all be all anymore. People have options now. There's Ring of
Mm-hmm.
Honor, AEW, Impact, New Japan. There's
And
so
Ring of
many
Honor hasn't even hit its
options.
stride yet because they're just now trying to. I think Tony Khan's trying to figure out what to do with them right now, and that's a whole other viable option right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like, for some of these wrestlers, they might go make a name for themselves. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe they won't. We won't see. But yeah, it sucks that 90 people lost their jobs. But on the bright side, it's they have the chance to reinvent themselves.
Right.
And like I said, look at all the people that we named: Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Zack Ryder, now Matt Cardona, Brian Myers. He's in Impact.
He's
W.
slated.
Morrissey, Big Bill, yeah, Rhino.
All of them.
So,
I mean, and that's the thing is there's a choice now. This is probably the best time to be in wrestling because you can work pretty much anywhere, and the independents are coming back. That's the thing is they're drawing GCW, which I mean, their death matches are crazy, but you've got people that like we wouldn't see Nick Gage on WWE. We wouldn't because that would just you wouldn't even hear his name. But AEW gives them the chance, and like the guys from New Japan Pro Wrestling, which Indy is all about that. I have no knowledge of NJPW beyond it's a company, and I know some of the names, but I mean you're getting this sort of. I mean the fact that AEW is having a Wrestle Dream pay per view, which I'm still waiting to see if they're going to wait on if they're going to bring somebody from Impact and have every promotion have a match because it makes sense for the card, right? But I think you're right. I mean, this is not I don't want to say a death sentence. That maybe sounds too morbid, but it's not good.
it's
The
at the
end of
end.
your career. It's not the end of your career, right? You definitely can go somewhere. You definitely can go and ply your trade. And if you're valuable enough, WWE will come calling and want you back. Look at Jade Cargill. Came from out of nowhere. Literally was like Shaq's partner one day in AEW. And now she's supposedly WWE bound. And they're supposed to put her on their main roster. Already have her in creative plans. I mean, so
Yeah.
there's options now. It's no longer this sort of you have to be in the E to be a superstar. It's not true anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. So, which is I think 2024 is going to be an interesting year in wrestling, especially not only because these people got released and it'll be interesting to see where they end up, but because contracts are expiring too. So,
Oh, a lot of them. Drew McIntyre's is, Sheamus's is, I think, and I mean, I'll be curious if Sheamus sticks around. He probably will, but I mean, could he use a refresh? I think so. I don't know where he could go. I mean, I think he would be okay in AEW. That's the thing with AEW. I like AEW, but I feel like there's so many different like main roster superstars. It's almost like it's inflated too much, if that makes sense. Like they have 3 shows, but like Rampage to me, I get Rampage is supposed to kind of be like this C show, right? But to me, as much talent as they have over there, literally they can have pay-per-view quality, not even matches, just matchups and names, and still build. Like the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed I thought was such a stupid gimmick at first, at least in my opinion. Now, that was me. But they've got it over. Just by using Billy Gunn of all people, Billy Gunn's got that gimmick over. Go figure.
I met Billy Gunn.
Did you?
He scissored me.
Oh, that's cool. That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
But
I
see,
met him at
that's the thing is
WrestleCon.
you could definitely go to AEW and become a star suddenly. Again, I would have never expected Orange Cassidy. Never would have guessed that would have been a thing. MJF even. I mean, he has potential. I think sometimes he lives his gimmick a little too much outside in the ring, but that's just me. But I definitely think that, 2024, as you said, is going to be very interesting. And the whole MJF, is he going to stay or is he going to go to WWE? And if he does, will they use him correctly? That's the big question.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Adam Cole. He was going to be Keith Lee's manager, and he's like, screw that. I'm going to go to AEW instead. And look, he's in the main event at Wembley Stadium.
Right? An incredible main event. All right. So do you have any last comments about the releases or anything before we get ready to wrap up?
I hope that this is the end of them. I hope we don't have it tomorrow where we're breaking news part 2. There's even more coming. I mean, again, I haven't seen that. I'm hoping that's not the case, but I'm hoping this is going to be a good while before they try to do another budget cut because to me, they have so much money. they can keep everybody forever and they're never going to run out of money. So no, I don't think so. I think it's sad people lose their jobs. And again, I feel for them because, we never really got to see some of these characters develop like they should have because of either time constraints or lack of creative. I mean, the fact that Elias was giving ideas and they used none of them, but they would commit, 25 minutes for him having an Elias, concert. I don't know. I think sometimes when one door closes, another door opens. So I hope the best for all of them. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I honestly hope that we don't get any more releases at all. And I hope that, this was the end of the releases and that WWE lets contracts expires instead of releasing people.
Right.
And like you said, when one door closes, another door opens. Yeah, that's it.
So maybe they'll go through a forbidden door. You never can tell, right?
Yeah, exactly. A forbidden door. So I guess we got to wait and see. But well, that's it for today. We hope you guys enjoy our debut episode of the WrestleManiacs podcast, courtesy of APlus Hero Report. All right, thank you guys all so much for watching and for the continuous support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever APlus Hero Report goes live, or to get notified whenever this video drops or anytime they drop content. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time. Bye.